Hey everyone, so Killing Floor 3 has been out for just over a week now, and it has been a ton of fun playing the game, honestly. And, you know, as a skeptic, really, I was hearing a lot of bad reviews about this game during its beta time, and I was like, oh man, I know I've been a Killing Floor fan for years. I used to play the second game during its beta days when it was on PC only. And then, you know, I didn't really play it much once I transitioned to Xbox or anything like that. So towards the back end of the years of Killing Floor 2, I didn't really get into it that much. But it was still a really fun game, and it is still a fun game to pick up and, you know, just kill things. You know, that's ultimately what you want from a Kill and Floor game, is to kill things and have fun doing it. And you know, this game has a lot of potential. We'll go through all the gameplay in this review. We'll talk about the graphics, the performance, you know, the bosses in the game currently, the classes, the weapons, the progression system, and, you know, a bunch of other features that I think are really good in the game, honestly. And it's just things that don't really make it into other people's reviews and when they talk about it. And so we'll start off with the gameplay now. It's just a traditional kill and floor game. You know, you're doing the wave-based modes. I will say the pacing sometimes on some of the waves is a little bit weird. There's a few of us that have discussed about this in my Discord as well, of just thinking, you know, the gameplay of the waves is playing out a little bit slow. And the problem is when people start splitting up and, you know, the Zeds are spawning on the other side, because the maps are like so big. I feel like the maps are slightly bigger in some instances compared to Kill and Floor 2. In terms of the map design, though, just real quick, I don't think it's that bad, but Kill and Floor 2's map design was definitely a lot better than it is in this game. There was a lot more iconic areas in Kill and Floor 2 and memorable areas. That you know, when you think back of when you played Kill and Floor 2, you're like, oh yeah, I remember this map, that was really cool. But, you know, a lot of the areas in this one seem quite forgetful. And some of the maps aren't really well designed, like the rooftop one and stuff. I don't really enjoy that one on this game in particular. But maps aside, gameplay wise, you know, the gunplay feels a lot better. It definitely feels a lot better than Kill and Floor 2, in my opinion. I think it's a lot crisper, the gunplay. It's just the pacing between waves could be a little bit faster. You've got to wait for people to just, you know, skip with the trader, you know, wait for them to finish with the trader. You've got to wait for them to skip, and sometimes they don't skip, so he's just sitting around waiting for the Zeds to spawn in, and get a little bit tedious sometimes. Especially when you're playing on normal, when you're starting out on normal, leveling up your classes as well. You're like, okay, I just want to keep going. I want to keep going. And then, like I said, when people start splitting up and the Zeds split up, and then, you know, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of Zeds to kill sometimes, just on the normal difficulty at least. And, you know, and you definitely need to play the harder difficulties here to have a little bit more enjoyment. But in the early days when you pick this game up, you're going to be playing on the normal difficulty, which can be a little bit of a grind to it, because it does feel like, you know, you're not really progressing much. But other than that, I think the gameplay is really solid. Like I said, the gunplay is really cool, with mixing them in all the different classes and stuff, which we'll get into in a moment. And I just wish the map design was a little bit better. This is kind of reminding me of Payday 2 and Payday 3. When they released Payday 3, it was totally different to Payday 2. And, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing in this time around, because I thought Payday 3 wasn't as good as Payday 2, definitely not. I think Kill and Floor 3 is as good as Kill and Floor 2, because they've definitely improved a lot of stuff, in my opinion. Despite the map design and everything that I've just mentioned. But that's all the you know, the gameplay wise, I think it's really solid. You know, the perks are really fun to use. All the different builds that you can come up with your character as well, you know, seeing those come into action. I just think that it's a lot more fun having these kind of classes with their special abilities and their gadgets and all that stuff that you can do. So there's definitely some fun things in the gameplay there. So moving on to the graphics and the performance. Honestly, when I first loaded this game up, I was like, is this Unreal Engine 5? Somebody said it was Unreal Engine 5. It doesn't look like an Unreal Engine 5 game to me. I'm playing on Xbox Series X. I'm playing in 4K, 60 FPS and all that stuff, and it just doesn't look clean like Kill and Floor 2 did to me. I don't know why. It feels like it just needs a little bit more enhancements on the graphics. It's a bit of a letdown compared to Kill and Floor 2 in that department, definitely with the graphics. I feel like they haven't vastly improved it compared to Kill and Floor 2. Maybe I'm a bit jaded with my memory in Kill and Floor 2. I thought the graphics on that game looked really good for its time, because it was Unreal Engine 4. And if this still feels like an Unreal Engine 4 game to me, but I really don't know what engine it currently is running on. Like I said, somebody said Unreal Engine 5, so if it is, it's a bit of a disappointment there. And in terms of performance, it's not great, especially in certain situations when you've got a lot of scrakes and, you know, flesh pounds and stuff going on, and you've got fire happening, and you've got all these effects going on, all these different perks. It's a bit, you know, too much. You know, the frames start dropping quite a bit. And that's just a part of the optimization stuff and the quality of life changes that they're going to be doing in the roadmap. So I'm sure the performance will, it's not terrible, but it could be a lot better than what it is right now. You drop them to about 40 frames. I've heard some things on PC though that, you know, it's running pretty smoothly on PC and they're not noticing any frame drops on certain hardware. So, you know, that's always a benefit as well. And just, you know, talking about the graphics and the performance, I'm not a huge fan of the UI in this game. It could definitely do with some cleaning up. You know, there's a lot going on there. Even though it's very simple, it's like it just looks so basic and dull compared to the UI in Killing Floor 2. And you know, I don't really want to sit here and be like, oh, let's compare this to Killing Floor 2. You know, it's not as good as Killing Floor 2, and like what other people have said. This, you need to treat this as its own game, and like how you perceive it really as its own game. You know, don't look back and being like, oh, well, you know, we had this in Killing Floor 2. Why is it not in Killing Floor 3? It's because, you know, they want to do a palette cleanse of the game and the franchise. They want to showcase other things that they can do with the game as well. Better or worse, you know, it's something different, and that's always a good thing. But you know, in terms of how different it is to Killing Floor 2, with Killing Floor 3, you have your own little base, sort of like Space Marine 2, where you have the stronghold. You know, you're moving around, you're going around there to level up and stuff like that. And then you're going over to the Beetle, it's called in this, but it's basically, you know, it's where you begin the mission. So it's a bit weird doing something like that, but it gives you a bit more of an engagement and puts you into the game a little bit more of like, okay, we're in Killing Floor, I'm going to be getting dropped off here, I'm going to go kill some Zeds. So it's a bit weird that it's not just like a main menu like what Killing Floor 2 was. And I don't like really dislike it. You know, it's not a terrible UI. It could just be so much better than what it is. It could be cleaned up a lot more. And but you know, it works. You know, to be honest, that's one thing I'll say about this game. I haven't had any bugs, and for a game to come out in 2025 and not have any bugs, that's always a good thing. Off the top of my head, you know, there's been instances where, you know, I've been stuck when I'm messing around upgrading stuff in the armory, or, you know, upgrading my perks or something like that. But, you know, that was on the first couple of days of the game being out. It could have just been a server lag issue or something along those lines. I haven't experienced it since, so that's what it could have been. But in terms of bugs of, like, you know, when I'm fighting and, you know, on the maps and everything, I've never ever come across a bug in this game, which, you know, it's always a good thing to mention that. You know, you don't want a buggy, laggy ass game. And to be fair, this game isn't laggy either. Like I said, it's literally just the performance that lets it down a little bit on that side of things. So moving on to the bosses. So far, I think there's only 3 bosses in the game. That's all I've played against. There's the Chimera, there's the Queen, and then there's the I forgot what the there's like 3 of them as one of the bosses as well. So yeah, it gets a bit samey and repetitive in that regard. You know, I thought Killing Floor 2, again, not to compare it really, but Killing Floor 2 had a lot more better bosses in the game, a lot more enjoyable ones as well. But you know, the bosses in this are still really fun. They do put up a really good fight as well. They're just a big health bar, really. But I definitely think the boss design could be a lot better in this game. That's another thing that kind of brings it down a little bit. I think the bosses are a bit too bland. They're just kind of this like this big thing that you've got to shoot and that's it. You know, with Killing Floor 2, you had obviously the professor, the scientist guy, I forget his name off the top of my head as well, where he used to grab people, he used to recharge himself and stuff. He had all these different mechanics as well, throwing his nerve gas around and stuff. The fights were a lot more enjoyable in that game than what they are in this game, where they just kind of look like evolve monsters really, and that's all you're kind of fighting and that's it. So I'd like to see some better boss design in the future of this game, but you know, it's again, it's not terrible. It's early days for the game. You gotta remember, like, this is like a £35 game, $40 game. You know, it's not a full price game, which is good in my opinion. You know, it runs better than games that you pay like $70 to $80 for. So, you know, you gotta give it that respect as well. It's not really terrible for the price that it's in. You know, I've played games at the same price. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That game feels like a fucking alpha still, and it's been out for over a year. And, you know, Killing Floor 3, the same price tag. It's a lot more fleshed out. It's a lot more polished as well. You know, like I said, there's not many bugs or anything like that. So for the price, you can't really go wrong for picking this game up or taking a chance on it, really. And that's what I did. You know, like I said, I was very skeptical about this game, and I took a chance on getting it, and I'm glad I did. You know, I listened to some feedback from people that I actually know, and I trust what their opinion is, and they said it was good. So I was like, you know, I'll check it out, and I picked it up, and I really had a lot of fun. It was one of the most fun streams that I've ever done in a long time, streaming Killing Floor 3. So it was nice to kind of come full circle on that, and coming back to doing Killing Floor content was pretty much what I started my channel on. But yeah, it's Killing Floor 3 with the price tag. I think it is definitely worth it. And, you know, moving on to the next thing, which we have to go into the price tag, of course, and, you know, the content that the game does offer. So currently we have, let me just sit and count real quick. We've got 3, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 maps, and then we have a weekly mutation map as well, which, you know, is a little bit of more of a challenge, so you can get more XP and stuff. Moving on to the classes. So these things are called basically perks. That's how your classes are called, they're perks. And, you know, there is currently 6 in the game right now. You've got Commando, you've got Firebug, you've got Engineer, you've got Sharpshooter, you've got Ninja, and you have Medic as well. You know, you can pretty much guess what they do. Firebug with fire, Commando is going to be your default class, really. That's really good with assault rifles and stuff, faster reloading. You've got your Engineer there that, you know, can have sonic projectiles and things. You've got your Sharpshooter, which is like a sniper. You've got your Ninja, that's your melee class, and you've got your Medic as well. And yeah, you know, there's just a lot of cool characters. Now, the people that don't like about this really at the moment is that you can't change the characters around like you could in Killing Floor 2, where you could play whatever class you wanted as any character. This has got a set. This is feeling a lot like Evolve compared to anything else, but this has like a set character per class at the moment, and you'll probably see some new characters being introduced into the individual classes in the future, I'd imagine, so you're not just playing as the same character over and over again. Like, for example, with Evolve, you had different medics, and they did different things, so I do wonder if, you know, if they're going to add new characters to the game, that they're going to have different perks to your normal medic, or they could just be skins. But yeah, I do sort of agree with people that it's not really good that you're forced to play that character on that class. You know, it would be nice to actually change things around. So maybe we'll see that in the future update, but that's how the perks really work in the game. And now, moving on to the weapons, we've got the whole armory here. Now, currently, there's 4 weapons per class right now as well. And, you know, it's not a terrible selection. You can, as well, during the game, you can mix and match from different classes. So, for example, you can play a Firebug, but then you can use the ninja swords and stuff like that. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but, you know, you could do it. You know, there's unique ways that you can design it. And the really cool thing is, you know, talking about all the weapons and stuff that's in the game, the really cool thing that you can do is upgrade these and create your own weapon that you can purchase while you're playing the game, so you can really beef up a shotgun, like what I'm doing right now on Firebug. I've got a Dragon's Breath shotgun, and, you know, I've got a bunch of purple and blue mods on it and stuff. You can then re-roll the mods, so then you can get, once you get them at tier 3, which is the, you know, the purple on there, you'll get a little bit of a bonus there as well. So you can re-roll the different attachments and stuff on weapons and then level them up, and then you can unlock the unique perk that that particular attachment will offer, if that makes sense. For example, like on my ammo one here on extended mag, what I do have is it offers increased damage by 7 when the magazine is at or below a quarter capacity. So I get an increase of 7 damage, and you will unlock that once you get that to tier 3 and you level that up. And it's not hard to come by the crafting materials. I've only been playing on normal at the moment, and you know, with my shotgun, I've got all the attachments on it, and then I'm just focusing on leveling up the attachments. It really isn't taking too long to do that. And not only that, but you can create multiple of the same gun as well. You can mess around with that. You can, you know, upgrade your sidearm as well, which would be your pistol in this instance for Firebug. So there's a lot of progression here. And like I said, with each class, you also have a ton of skills that you can go through. So there's loads of different builds you can make around the class. You know, there's like 3 different trees. You've got your passive, your throwable, and your gadget. Your gadget is your ultimate. Your passive is basically, you know, massively damaging the Zeds, you know, what increased damage you can get on there. And you can basically just interchange this on each row, so you can select out of 3 perks on each row. You can mix and match them as well if you want to do that. So then you can create your own build and then you can go into the weapons and then change the weapons around to suit your build as well. So that's why I really like the progression. I think the progression system in this game is really good. Honestly, I think they've hit out the ballpark with what to bring some kind of uniqueness as well. Where in Killing Floor 3, it was very simple with the classes. You know, there wasn't much you could do with them once you had them leveled up. But with this one, you can literally create your own unique build, and then you can create your unique weapons to suit that build as well. So there's a lot of grind to this game, which can make it really fun to, you know, keep playing and having that replayability there, which is something I personally like. Now let's talk about the supply pass, and you know, this thing is kind of getting mixed things from the playbase of Killing Floor, and I can see the downside. I see why people get annoyed. You know, there is stuff you can earn for free. You can earn free credit packs, which then you can purchase skins within the store that has a certain refresh. But this basically works like a Helldivers pass if you played that game, where you have about 5 things on each page, and then you just purchase them by completing challenges in the game and doing your assignments and stuff, and then you'll get a certain currency that will allow you to purchase one of the sections. So it's really good, honestly. I like the supply pass mechanic. I liked it in Helldivers. I think it's better than what was in Killing Floor 2, which was just pretty much loot boxes. That's never really a good mechanic, and I feel like people need to remember what we had in the older games of how predatory those microtransactions were compared to having a supply pass. And there is stuff you can earn for free in this supply pass as well. Granted, the skins in the first one aren't particularly great. They're quite plain. But we're not really here to review the supply pass that's in the game currently, because there's definitely be a lot more coming to the game, and these ones will definitely be a lot better. But you can get things like weapon charms, you can get new character skins, and just stuff like that can change your character up quite a lot. Currently, when this one, it's more focused around you'll get a skin for pretty much every class in the game, but the last skin is for the ninja class, which is actually a really cool skin with a hood and stuff. And it looks like Ronin, as when Hawkeye becomes Ronin. So there's some really cool stuff in the battle pass that I like. I don't think it was priced really bad, and to be honest, if you pick up the Deluxe edition, you get it for free, and anyway you'll get some free skins with that too. So yeah, it's not terrible. I would prefer having something like a supply pass than having fucking loot boxes. So we'll have that definitely. And now, of course, we have a store as well where you can buy the credits, and they'll have a refresh of like every couple of days of adding a new skin to the store. So that's really cool too. Now, to progress through the supply pass, we have these things called assignments. We've got daily orders, we've got weekly operations, we've got primary directives. The game has like a little campaign to it as well, where you go through all the missions and everything. Like you've got story missions that you go through, and it'll tell you what map to go on and then complete the objectives on that map. And going through all of this, you'll unlock some, you'll unlock some skins, you'll unlock some stickers and things, some banners and profile things. Like there's loads of stuff that you can unlock going through that and just completing the campaign there. But then you'll have your primary directives of, ride a kit, 25 flesh pounds, and that'll give you 600 XP to the supply pass, and then you'll get a player card as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can grind for as well, to the side of the supply pass and grinding your weapons and your classes up. So there's always a reason really to keep playing this game, and not mention they're going to be adding more stuff as well. And then of course there's weekly operations that give you perk XP, so then you can level up your class a lot faster as well. So yeah, just bear that in mind. There's quite a hefty progression to this game, and like I said, it is only a £35 game, $40 game, and you're getting quite a lot of stuff to really sink your teeth into, which is why I think is great. And now for the last thing that I think is a very important thing to talk about is just some of the features this game offers. So I play on controller on Xbox, of course. You can mess around with the field of view. That's a very important thing. Especially for this game, you can turn motion blur off, and just things like that, which is good. And what I do like the most about this game is its crossplay system. So right now, this is the really good thing about the crossplay system. So you have 2 means of inviting people. You have the cross-platform invite code system, which you would see in other games. But the cool thing is, on top of that, you can then add people that's in your game, and then they'll go on your friends list, and then you don't always have to send them a party invite code. You only really have to send them at the one time, and then you can add them within the game's lobby in the UI, and then you can just invite them the next time you're online. So I think that was a really cool feature worth mentioning, because, you know, with games that are this, you know, quote unquote cheap compared to the other games out there, this has got a really solid crossplay system that many, like maybe a lot of people have overlooked. And like I said, connection wise, it's solid. You know, I haven't had any lag, I haven't had any crashes or anything like that. The game has ran really smoothly for me, apart from a few performance issues, like I said, dropping to about 40 frames in certain situations and certain fights. Again, you know, just going over the positives and the negatives of this game, I think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. There's a few things they need to work on: the bosses, the maps, the performance. You know, it's just things like that that kind of bring the game down a lot. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you know, the gameplay is crisp, it's fun, the gunplay is fun. You know, all the UI elements, the progression to it in terms of, you know, there's just a good grind to the game. Also, the UI elements would be a negative thing, but it is also a positive thing because it's relatively easy to navigate. I'm not really a big fan of having the whole stronghold system like you do in Space Marine. I'd rather just kind of have things in the main menu, but, you know, it makes the game a bit more interactive as well. So, you know, there's a good and bad to that, to having that in a game. But I think, you know, positive side of things, like, when I was sitting playing this game for the first time, I was really sitting there, and there's not really many negatives that come to my mind other than the performance issues that really kind of bug me. I think the enemy design as well isn't the best. You know, even the things like the sirens, I don't think the sirens look particularly cool. The gore fast as well doesn't look as cool. The flesh pound looks pretty awesome. Oh yeah, so the other boss is where 3 impalers spawn, basically. So yeah, it's, you know, even the Scrake doesn't look as cool as it did in Killing Floor 2. I don't know, the enemies design just don't look great, but it would be a bit weird if they just like kind of implemented the same enemies from the second game. But I think the enemies in the second game definitely looked a lot better than they do in 3. I'll say that. So yeah, you know, just for negatives, there's not a lot really in my opinion, especially since we got a roadmap to look at. You know, we got a bunch of stuff coming to the game and to look forward to as well, and, you know, for everybody just to kind of pick up. And so yeah, overall, I'm gonna give this game about a 7 out of 10. I think that's fair just because of the performance issues and some of the other stuff that I mentioned. But other than that, you know, there's so many good things in this game that you will come to love and enjoy. And someone who really enjoys these games like World War Z and Killing Floor and, you know, Payday, you know, all these kind of wave-based games where you're killing a lot of shit, basically. Yeah, like this one is one of them that really got me excited again to get back into this kind of genre, because although it does need improvements, I'm going to be interested to see what kind of journey it goes on. Because, you know, games coming out and then they're dying in like a year or something like that, and then like that's it, no more content. I really want to see this game, you know, grow. I remember early days of Killing Floor 2, it was very bland. You know, there wasn't a lot to it at all. So, you know, you can't really expect them to say, right, okay, we're going to basically just make Killing Floor 2 again with better graphics. Like, it's just, that would just be boring. So I do like to see that they've changed things up and made the game play a little bit better with the gunplay and stuff, and, you know, having all this progression and stuff. So that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. And if you're wondering if you should pick this game up, you know, you can get it on like CD keys and things. Like I got the Jokes edition on CD keys for like £42. So, you know, it's not an expensive game. And I know, I do understand as well that, you know, people do really do a lot of research and they're like, oh, should I buy this game? And in my personal opinion, if the game has a roadmap, I feel like Tripwire are going to be a bit dedicated to it as well. Maybe you do want to wait for a sale and wait for the game to be a little bit better by then as well. If it does go on sale, you know, by all means, go ahead. But, you know, if you're just on the fence, should I buy it or not? And, you know, you've got the money there for it, I would say pick it up. I think you'll have a ton of fun with it, and you know, getting into the game. And if you did enjoy Killing Floor 2, I think you will enjoy this game as well, despite it not really being like Killing Floor 2. It's just it's in its own unique way, which is what I like. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope this review helps you out in deciding if you want to pick the game up or not. If you have any questions or comments about the game, feel free to leave them down below, and I'll do my best to my knowledge to get back to you and let you know about that. And yeah, hit the like button, hit that sub button for more videos like this on this channel. I've been Pixels, my awesome viewers. I'll catch you guys in the next one.